Hello, welcome to Skip Squad Chronicles with me, your host, Dizzy Skips. Every episode, I sit down with someone from our amazing jump rope community to hear their unique story, the ups, the downs, and all the skips in between. Join us as we share laughs, insights, and the spirit that makes this community truly one of a kind. Let's jump right in.
It gets harder every day to be clever.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, cats and kittens, this is episode 4 of the Skip Squad Chronicles podcast with me, your host, Dizzy Skips. I'm just crazy about the jump rope community, and the people I've met through this community are so supportive, hardworking, hilarious, and fun. And jumping rope and dancing have changed my life for the better in so many ways. A lot of the credit goes to the support of wonderful people like my guest today. While jumping recently, I decided I wanted to know more about my jump rope friends, and when we're only connected on Instagram, it takes time to get to know one another. You've got a maximum of 90 seconds on a reel or 15-second stories, occasional DMs and comments. So I thought, what better way to get to know folks than to rope them into an interview where we can have a fun conversation and find out what makes our fellow jumpers tick. So in our 4th skip session today, I'm thrilled to talk to my friend Richard Head. He's a really fun guy to follow and is a skilled skipper. If you don't know Richard already, you should. You can find him on Instagram at and I'll put his link in the show notes as well. So Richard, thank you so much for joining me. Let's just jump right in.
So
First of all,
this whole idea is awesome, man. Thank you so much for including me. I really appreciate it.
really, I'm so happy that,
Super
I've got
cool.
such great response from people, and it makes me tickled because the idea of learning more about my fellow jumpers just felt inspiring to me. And I thought, oh, I can talk a little bit, or at least I
Sure.
host these nerd meetups every month, and I exercise my extrovert muscles and get in front of people and talk. And I thought, well, I can do this on the podcast and see how it goes. So thank
Well,
you
just a
for
fantastic
coming on.
idea.
Cool. So first of all, can you tell us where you're at, what you do?
I'm a cook. I actually work for corporate food service. So I run a cafe, and then we have a catering department, and so busy days on my feet. Which it's kind of the only thing I've ever really done. So
You're in the
seems
Seattle
fun.
area, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So do
right
you work
downtown. I work real close to the Space Needle.
oh, wow. So yeah, I can imagine you're quite busy. How long have you done that?
Always, like, I got my first restaurant job and I was probably 24, and I just
Yeah.
have always done that kind of work. I mean, now when I'm doing the corporate food service, I kind of can work those hours. So if you're cooking for people, that work a 9 to 5 or whatever, it kind of enables me to have more of a family life and work those typical
Yeah.
hours. Whereas most restaurant workers are, up late
Yeah.
and working weekends and working when everybody else is
Right.
partying. But I'm fortunate enough to not have to kind of
Yeah.
bend myself that way. So it's
That's
been
cool.
nice with, the
I've worked
family
in
and stuff.
kitchens before too, and yeah, I've had that experience where you get called in at whatever hour they need you, and so that's cool. So when did you start jumping?
So I think I was kind of thinking about this, and I think it's probably been about 2 years now. Maybe
Oh,
October
really?
2022 is when I started.
Okay. And
Uh,
did you start your Instagram account at the same time?
No, so I had an Instagram, just my personal Instagram, and when I started kind of getting more heavily into the jump rope, I started doing what I'm doing now on Richard Head Jump. So I actually have about 18 months of like already done Instagram posts, put to music and different things. Cause it was, I liked the jump roping. I liked the video editing, kind of, not that it's, I'm crazy, intricate at it, but just, picking out songs and putting in the edit
Yeah,
and
totally.
doing that. So if you look at my page, you can actually, if I have an older one, I'll put the date, because I have all the video, I have all the
Oh,
stuff. So
okay.
I can sort of just go to my personal page and then, text myself that same thing and sort of recreate that
Yep.
over again. So if you look at my page, there's a few that have like dates at the very beginning of the caption, and those are some of my older ones. I'm still sitting on quite a bunch of stuff. So
That's
it's kind
cool.
of fun because I can, I'm producing new videos, but also, like, if it's a rest day or whatever, I can pull something out of the treasure vault and put it on there. And that kind
That's
of,
awesome.
I sort of treat it like a diary. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, Because
Totally.
you look at, you always wearing that T-shirt, and I had that song, and like, oh, I was feeling this way, or
Hmm.
my kids had just done this or whatever. So it's fun. It's fun for me to kind of back scroll. And
Yeah,
the
totally.
part that's new is, so I had that on my personal account, but I started I started Richard Had Jumps a long time ago, but I sort of didn't do anything with it until, a month ago, or whenever you and I first started communicating was kind of when I started it. So the new
Okay.
part of this for me has been the community, and like seeing, before it was just like, hey, look at me, I'm jumping rope. And, my friends, I get some likes from my mom or whatever, but I wasn't
Good
seeing
old
what
mom.
other people were doing with their jump ropes or whatever. It was because it was just my personal page. So the new thing, that's kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It's just the community and watching other people and what they're doing, and, having back and forth conversations about different tricks and different, you
Hmm.
know, mindsets or whatever. So that piece of it is super new to me. So I'm really
How
kind
does
of
it
enjoying
affect you?
that.
Like that? How has the community affected you?
Well, I mean, I'll call you out if I have to, because, I started that page, and, I had some interactions with like Viking Jumps and a couple other people, really,
Cool
really
guy.
limited stuff. And then um, I saw you out there, and I don't think we had interacted at all. And I had like saw maybe, a like or two or something, but I put a post that said, well, Dizzy's out there. I woke up feeling kind of tired, and I should work out, but maybe I'll
Oh
just
yeah.
play video games or whatever. And
Hmm.
opened up my phone and sit down with my coffee, and I saw you, and you're out there on your block, just, going for broke. And I put in a comment or whatever. Well, if Dizzy's out there, then I better get off my ass and go and
Hmm.
do it. And then I can't remember if it's the next day or whatever, but you had replied with like a video message, like referencing me, like, "Hey, Richard, I'm out there." And
Yeah.
so that was a mind blower for me to like turn on my phone and like, because like I say, I was used to posting these videos, and, oh, my mom says something or whatever,
Hmm.
but to like, here's
Yeah.
another person that's out there who's apparently just as crazy as me,
Oh,
out there jumping.
at
And,
least.
so, I mean, that was a big deal for me just to
Cool.
get that response from you. So just like, that's
Cool.
kind of part of my story. And also a thank you I wanted to get in, just because I
Oh, well,
opened up
that's
my
so
phone,
nice
and
of you.
here's this guy I don't even know just going like, hell yeah, dude, let's get it together.
Let's
So that
jump.
was,
Yeah.
a mind blower for me. So, I mean,
Cool.
that's a piece of it too. And then just being, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm necessarily a cool, like all you shuffler people and all the, tricky ninja, like some of the stuff that you do is pretty mind blowing to me. And, um, so just starting to kind of see what other people just are doing is
Hmm.
pretty neat. And, like you reached out, and I had a couple other kind of behind the scenes people that have reached out. I've heard you talk about Aaron before. He's sent me tutorials, and
Yeah.
just super exciting to, not just be looking at YouTube videos, but actually being able to interact like
Yeah.
within a matter of seconds. I've
Yeah.
been working on those EBs, and I can't remember the specifics, but I think I did a search for EBs and clicked on a video that kind of made sense to me, and just told whoever it was that I feel bad. I don't remember his handle now, but,
Hmm.
made a comment, and he had immediately got back to me like, well, try this and try that. And that it got me out there. And,
Cool.
and, so now I don't have a mastered, but, my body sort of knows what to do on each side,
Yeah.
which is, the goal, right?
Yeah. I just, I never tire of the community. Like it's
Yeah.
the things that you can learn from people just by watching and listening and reading
Yep.
descriptions. You're reading the real descriptions, um, or the support that you can get. Like you listen
Yeah.
to the podcast with Janie, and Janie's
Yep.
method of learning is like watching videos and then asking for help, over
Yeah.
Instagram, and people have helped her. And I think that's just awesome. And
Well, and
there's,
it just never occurred to me that was a thing. It's just like you
yeah,
go and you take in from the internet, but like this back and forth component that has
right.
kind of materialized is it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So going back to jump rope here, what are the things that you like? How would you describe your own jump rope style? What do you do? What do you like to do?
Well,
What do you hope to do, or what are you working on?
I mean, so I started jumping 2 years ago, but I think if you travel, I've been thinking a lot about this, but before that, um, I'd done a lot of cycling.
Mm.
So maybe 2018 to 2019, I kind of caught on to the idea that my job is 10 miles from my house.
Okay.
So I caught on to the fact that I could get on my bike and ride to work. And then, if you're going into work or you're going to, a thing that requires energy, I get kind of anxious and my brain spins. And I found that if I took that bike ride on the way to work, then I'm putting out some physical activity. I'm calming my
Totally.
mind. When I get there, I can take a quick shower, and now I'm at least better than I would have been if I just got up and drank too much coffee and drove straight to work. And so
Yeah.
I did that for many, many years. And I think it was 2000, maybe it was before COVID, but anyway, I'd been doing a lot of miles, no stretching, no nothing, no, just get on the bike and go as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see where this is going. And so, just like almost overnight, I developed this crazy, like sciatic pain,
Mm.
in my leg.
Yeah.
And it was just constant. Like I had that Thanksgiving that year at dinner, I stood up because I couldn't sit.
Oh,
When I
that's some
when I would
serious
drive
pain.
to when I would drive to work in the morning, I would have to take my foot and put it up on the dashboard because if I
Ah.
sat, yeah, I was just intense pain, and I
That's
dealt with
driving
that
like a
for,
Muppet, Richard. Like,
yeah, no, for real, man, it was crazy. It was just what I had to do, and so I dealt with that for, I want to say 9 months, 10 months,
holy
a
Moses.
long time. I went to the doctor. I did physical therapy. I paid thousands of dollars that I didn't have to go and
Yeah. Treat this.
and I can't tell. And then just like it turned off one day. I started taking fish oil. I don't know if that's what did it or not. But at the end of that, I was left with I had these stretches that I had got from the physical therapist, and I found this. I found it really hard to be consistent and do those stretches every day.
Mm.
And so I knew I needed to do it. It only took 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I knew that like that would help this pain, but it was hard for me to stay consistent. It was hard for me to stay like on task enough to like, okay, now I'm going to do this stretch and now I'm going to not think about the next thing I'm going to have to do, but I'm just going to be here. And so I found this app where I could program in all my stretches, and I
Mm.
could set the time for this stretch, and so then all I would have to do is take my phone out and I would put my headphones on and I would listen to music. And all I would have to do is just hit go and then watch the screen, do the stretches for the amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so after I got onto that, then it wasn't such a big, like, oh, I got to do my stretches or whatever. I just pull out my phone, hit
Yeah.
go, and then just, I'm there. I'm in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. I'm not thinking about the next thing. I'm just doing my stretches. And so from that, I started adding like dumbbells and I started
Mm.
adding different exercises to it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just helped me stay on track. And then at some point, I think it was Lauren jumps like everybody else or whatever. Towards the end of COVID,
Yeah.
I don't know that I was even specifically trying to find jump rope, and I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you what the first seed was in my head, but I was like, oh, cool, I can do jump rope. And that was the other thing is if I'm cycling, like to get a good bike ride in, I'd be out on my bike for 4 hours and
Yeah.
away from the house, right? Because I didn't just want to circle the block. I want to be Frodo leaving the Shire and go and journey. You know what I mean? And that was part
Right.
of it. And so trying to find like, well, what can I do where I can get that same cycling kick that I get, but not have to like gear up and get my headlamp and go do all this stuff. And so when
Yeah.
I came across the jump rope, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is it. And like a lot of people, I started and I tried it, and just I've heard you say this too, like, oh my God, like this is so hard. My
Holy shiznit.
my my
Yeah.
feet and my ankles and my calves, like it's all just gonna like light on fire. Like, what
Right.
the hell, and,
Yeah.
I'm well into my 40s by this point. And so all I did was I added 30-second rounds. I think it was 4 30-second rounds I added into my stretches and
Hmm.
my whatever. And at the start, it was 75% like dumbbells and, planking and whatever. And then just those 4 30-second rounds of jump rope. And like, that
Hmm.
was enough to put me on my ass,
Oh yeah.
right? Like those four
Yeah,
thirty
totally.
second rounds, done. Just basic bounce. That's all I could do. No boxer skip,
Right.
no nothing.
Hmm.
And so I think just over the course of, months, and a lot of stuff changed for me when I found jump rope. I changed the way I'm eating.
Mm.
I decided to really focus on reducing my marijuana consumption, like
Mm.
down to as much as possible, because I was definitely
Sure.
a
Dude.
daily user. And I also found that the more pot I was smoking, the more like the next day, those anxious, racing, self-doubting thoughts would come up.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's another thing that I'm finding is the less pot I'm smoking, the less sort of consequences I'll have to suffer later, and I can feel more calm and more self-confident and more, the same feelings I'm wanting to get from that bike ride,
Sure.
or from now that jump rope session of like, dude, just Jacob's brain, like, calm down, settle
Right.
down. And so just over the
That's really
months of
interesting.
trying, yeah. And so just over the months of staying consistent with my workouts, just not even on purpose, like the dumbbells kind of disappeared. And then the 4 30-second rounds turned into 6 30-second rounds. And then they turned into 45-second rounds. And
Hmm.
then they turned into 8 45-second rounds. And like, now I don't
Nice.
care so much about, the curls, and I don't care so much about, and
Hmm.
so then after a while, it just turned into like, planks and push-ups are even pretty recent. But yeah, it was just go and jump. And um yeah, just kind of,
So
that's sort of the genesis of where I'm at now, was the cycling.
cool.
And the thing about the cycling too, it's a skill, right? So if
Hmm.
you're out there on your bike, you can't just totally disconnect and not
Right.
think
Right.
about what you're doing. You have to think about what you're doing, because there's
Yeah.
cars and there's curbs and there's
Yeah.
potholes, but you still are in that mode of like,
Yeah.
your blood's
Burning
pumping, and
calories. Yep.
and you're chilling. Your body's kind of under a little bit of duress, and it calms your mind,
Hmm.
And I feel like the jump rope's kind of the same thing. Like, if,
Yeah, totally.
even though I'm not traveling in a physical space, like if I, like, to be honest, I was a little bit nervous before we did this, and I'm wandering around the house, bothering, chasing my wife around so I don't know what to do. And then I realized, like, well, stupid, go out and jump rope for 20 minutes.
There you go.
And so
Yeah.
literally, like, before I text you on Instagram, I'm like, well, I'll just go out and do 20 minutes, and then I'll feel
Nice.
more chilled out, and be able
Yeah.
to kind of articulate myself a little bit better. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I
Cool.
know
I know I've noticed on some of your reels, like you do document like what you did. So you'll say like, 4 30-minute or
Mhm.
30-second rounds of this, and then, however much planking, and then and
Yeah.
I I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And that's something that I have not done, or I don't even really do in my descriptions to talk
Yeah.
about like my warm-ups and stuff. But that's cool. Do you do that to kind of document it so that when you look back, you could see kind of where you were at that time?
Yeah, well, yeah, and like I say, I sort of have always treated it like a diary, and now that I have this new page, I'm sort of just doing the same. And I also want to make sure that I'm prioritizing the activity. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, so like on a typical, thing for me, and I like getting it done early. Like,
Mm. Yeah.
if I'm gonna skip, I want to go early, because that way I can come home from work and just, I did it. I got my thing done for the day, so I can just chill out. And,
Yeah.
with kids around and family, um, you have to touch base with everybody. You have to spend time with everybody. You have to,
Sure.
do that stuff, and it takes time. And so, I mean, that's kind of the other thing, the reduced marijuana consumption, the reduced like video games, and just really trying to, you know, people think they can just get rid of bad habits, but you have to replace those bad habits
Sure.
with something else.
Yeah.
So why not, jump rope? Why not? It's
Yes.
a little bit silly, but it's fun,
It's not silly at all. I don't think. I mean,
Yeah,
jumping rope and shuffling, or dancing around the city or the town, have totally changed my consumption of things,
sure,
like
sure.
whether it's food or smoke or stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's in a joyful way. It's in a way that I don't miss it, So that's been great. One of the things I love about your videos on Instagram is that I think you and I are of similar ages, and you've got a lot of good guitar music on there. I say guitar music, but um, like Weezer, and you've got
Yep.
Nirvana, and I was writing down some earlier. The Cure, I heard The Cure,
Yeah, I
Kid
did The Cure, I
Cudi.
think yesterday, or the last one I
Yeah.
did was The Cure.
The Cult, She Sells Sanctuary.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
So that video is actually an old one.
Yeah.
That one was from
Okay.
like last summer, and that swing kick at the end was like I had unlocked that
Nice.
morning, so I was super stoked, and I was like, what's the song that really will just like and when it it first kicks in at the beginning of that song, like
Yeah.
it felt very appropriate for how I was feeling about being able to do that silly little kick move.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's got a really cool intro, very kind of iconic intro. One of the other things that I like about your feed is you have a lot of inspirational stuff, like whether it's you just posting stuff with text on it or posting other sort of meme stuff. In fact, I noticed that on your profile you use the it's highlights feature, I think it's called, on Instagram, where you can kind of highlight specific reels, and so you have one that's called like Jump Rope Friends, and I have to say
Oh
I'm
yeah,
honored
yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah,
listed on that.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
very
yeah.
nice. Thank you. But
Well,
you
like I
have
say,
one
you were the
that's like
first one to like.
inspirational stuff as well, and that's cool. I really like a lot of the inspirational stuff because I think it's a lot. It goes along the line of how I think too. A lot of it
Yeah.
is just get out there and do that stuff. I Going back to your jumping real quick. I was going to comment that you jump a lot in the morning. I tend to jump, later, except on weekends. I tend to jump as much as I can. But are you jumping at home in the morning, or are you jumping at work in the morning, or does it matter?
So, well, I don't. I have a really great spot at home that actually I built, which is just a
Okay.
5x5 cement slab. But what I was gonna say is typically how it goes for me is, and this goes back to even beginning to jump rope at all, like you don't want to always, right? So for me, if I leave the house at 5:30, I know that I can be ready for work at 6:30. But if I want to get in some jump rope, then I know I have to leave the house at like 4:30, which means I have to get up earlier. And it's kind of before the jumping rope even starts. It's like, okay, we got to get up, we got to get our stuff, we got to get there. And then, yeah, so the spot where I work, there's actually two buildings, and in the center, they have an open like courtyard that's,
Mm-hmm.
you have to badge in and you can't get in there. So I can go out there and skip my rope. And there's literally like I'm outside, there's leaves falling, wind blowing, but I don't have to worry about other people around.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
pretty. I
yeah,
know exactly where you're talking about because there's
yeah,
like angled buildings behind you.
yep,
Yeah, it's
yep,
really pretty.
yeah. So that's the spot where I work, and so it's just another piece of like, you know, you have to find the motivation to even get to your spot to start working out, and then you have so much time to get that done. I think a lot of my jumping, and that's different than a lot of the other people you've talked to, is it's I always use that app, right? It's always like number of rounds. It's always very sort
Oh.
of predetermined. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I think I'm getting to the point where I feel like that's sort of holding me back a little bit,
Mm.
because I just, for literally years, I've opened up that app and I've said, okay, now I'm going to do, maybe I'll stretch first, or maybe I'll do
Right.
whatever. And then I'm going to do 25 1 minute rounds with a 10-second rest and just bang that out. And then I hit go and I just start jumping. So I think I'm sort of realizing now that, you know, um, maybe I should attempt more to just go like, I'm just going to go outside and jump rope and just try to do tricks and try to listen to my music or whatever. So it's sort of a double-edged sword because it keeps me very like, and again, it goes back to the cycling. Like when I'm jumping, it's just, I'm putting out that effort. I'm concentrating on the skill, right? Because if I'm not paying attention to exactly what I'm doing, then I'm going to, trip on the rope, or I'm going to whip myself in the face or whatever. So that's just like cycling. I like it that, you can let your mind wander to a point, but then you have to still be focused on the task at hand.
That's my jump rope nirvana, is when I can kind of like turn off my brain
1000%.
and just flow, and like, and I'm always listening to music, and I'm very selective about what I'm listening to. And so, so it sounds like your approach is more from the, like, I got to get in exercise. It reminds me of my kickboxing days where it's like, all right, we're doing 3 1-minute rounds. And and then there was that one time where I went to this boxing club in Tacoma, and they're like, all right, we're going to do 2 15-minute rounds. And it was 15 minutes like in a row. And that's what we did. And I thought I was going to die. I don't think I could walk for a few days after that.
But I think especially now, and since I've started kind of seeing what everybody else is doing, I'm sort of looking at not getting rid of that strategy, but, taking some time to just go out and work on skills and work on tricks. Like I say, I feel almost, I don't want to compare myself to other people, right? Because we're not supposed to do that. But I think, a lot of the people that you've talked to and a lot of people I see are just the behind the backs and the crisscrossing and all the, and I can do some stuff. Like I can, I'm not
you
not
got
a
moves.
ninja, right? Yeah. Like I got some stuff, but just some of the other stuff I see, I think, if I'm specifically like, I'm doing 30-minute rounds, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like if I'm practicing trick, then, you're practicing something new, you're going to miss a step or whatever. And so now I'm not doing the work. I'm not, going for that minute. So it's sort of, but then I also find that, I did do a session where I just said a 45-minute, like I'm just going to be out here practicing EVs for 45 minutes. And I kind of found at the end of that 45 minutes, I was probably just as winded and, getting all those positive benefits that I would have gotten if I just, I'm going to do 45 1-minute rounds and that's it. So I would
totally be winded from swearing at the rope, or at myself.
And
so I've done that where I go out and practice like releases for, a half hour, 45 minutes, and I'm listening to music and whatever, and just whack my knuckles over and over again, or, whack myself in the back of the head, launch my headphones off.
And then, I mean, kind of piggybacking on that, and maybe you can speak about this, but I've also felt like you learn a few things with your rope, like I'm coming from a place of like basic balance. I thought boxer skip would be impossible. And now like I almost can't not boxer skip when I jump. Yeah. Like I have to focus on.
You do it really well.
Yeah. And so you get good at a few things, but now you have this sort of choice of, I can feel really cool and I can go really fast and I can do these things that I know that I'm good at. Right. And now I'm cool. And now I got my tunes going and now I'm going, but to keep learning, you almost have to like make the choice to be bad at jump rope again. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's where I feel stuck.
I totally know what you mean.
Like I only have so much time before work, so I don't want to spend that time feeling, like I'm not good at this. So it's sort of, I get trapped in the like, well, I'm just going to do my boxer skip and my double side swings and my things that I thought were impossible that now come so second nature. And it feels like, and again, I don't think this is accurate. I think this is a trick that my brain plays on me, but, I don't want to practice that right now because I'm not good at it and it'll be a waste of my
I know exactly what you mean, Richard. And I totally did that this summer. Like, especially, I live in Minnesota where the winters are kind of cold and desolate. And so when it's spring and summer, I just want to take advantage of it. And, sort of my style. I put on music and I just do my thing and sort of flow. And I love that. I love that. For me, it's really meditation. It's helping me deal with the stress of the day or the week or my life or stuff like that. And so there are times where I feel like okay, if I go out here and I practice releases or I practice that new footwork that coach told me to practice,
Mhm.
I'm going to stop and start and I'm going to swear or I'm going to be frustrated, or I could go out and I could just flow and then feel better. And so I have
Yeah.
just flown over and over again. And so I feel like when I watch people, again, not to compare myself qualitatively to other people, but when I watch some people who have been jumping the same amount of time or less than I have, they're doing releases left and right and catching them. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm behind. But I did sort of make a decision at the beginning of the summer, like this is going to be my summer of footwork. Like I'm going to learn how to do footwork. And
I'm right
I
there with
don't,
you, brother.
I don't
I'm
know
feeling the
that
same
I've
way.
learned that, but I'm so much better than I was, at the beginning of the summer. And that's one of the great things about recording and watching those videos is I can go back to, March when I started and see these videos where I was so proud of myself that I could alternate my feet without, you know,
Right.
tripping up for 45 seconds. And now it's like I can alternate my feet and I can do some shuffles and stuff. And I can do all that within 45 seconds and still trip up.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about your ropes. Like, can you talk a little bit about like your favorite ropes or what do you use? Are you a rope
Yeah,
nut
good.
like
Actually,
me?
I was going to answer that question, and then I thought, well, don't interrupt him. He's okay. So okay, so the other thing that kind of got folded in by accident for me is when I started out, my very first rope, I got like a $12 just TVC rope from like Big Five Sporting Goods, and I
Oh,
rocked that one. I rocked that one for quite a long time. That was the one that kind of took me from the point of, I tried to jump for my 4 30-second rounds and realized that that will light my legs on fire. And like, how could I ever do that? And so that rope took me from that point to like, maybe 10 1 minute rounds or 15 1 minute rounds I was doing. And I was feeling pretty strong and I was starting to learn
wow.
some crosses and like boxer skip a
Hmm.
little bit. And then, I got the money rope, the Athletics money rope. It's like
Okay.
it's another PVC rope. If you look up Rush Athletics, there's like a British guy and he does like
Yeah. I,
crazy double unders and like, oh my God, that
yeah.
guy's a maniac. And so I bought one of his
Yeah.
ropes and I used that one it actually kept breaking. Like I
Oh,
would break at the handle. And so
was it
that
PVC?
root, I think so. Yeah. It was like
Mm.
a yellow. Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't a beaded one. I never have used a beaded one. And I know that you probably do. And I'm curious about that because I feel like I'm ready
You've
to.
never used a beaded rope, really?
I mean, once or twice I had one, but then I sized it for my daughter and I never really picked it up again after
And
that.
then it was
So
hard
anyway,
because you kept whacking yourself.
yeah, well, I didn't, I had my other one and I didn't really go for it. And so
Hmm.
that one that I spent money on had broke and I returned it and brought it back and it broke. And again, the reason that was so frustrating is because I had this certain workout that I was going to go do on the morning before work and whatever. And then my rope
Hmm.
broke. And so then it was like, oh, dude, I had pumped myself up to go do this work, and now my rope's broken. And so I decided to. That's when I got a cross rope.
Okay.
So I got the 2 pound and the 1 pound, and I had a 6 ounce rope,
Okay.
and I started using that one. And I think at that point, because when I was doing the PVC ropes, I was focusing more on my crosses and my tricks and that kind
Sure.
of stuff. And then I got the cross rope, which was a little heavier duty. The handles are much heavier and all that. And so at that point, I really started to feel some like physical changes in my body, like in a good way, like my upper body
Okay.
and my chest and my
Yeah.
arms. And, like we talked about, I was on a
Getting
bike.
ripped.
So I never was really a like upper body guy. I still can't like do a pull up or any of that stuff, but that's on my bucket list, but we'll get there. But yeah, I started to really see like, oh man, I'm like, like I don't, I don't know how to say it without, but like,
No,
you feel good
you
about
start to see
yourself and
muscle definition that you didn't see
yeah,
before. Like, wow, I had that
yeah. And
same
like,
experience where I was like watching a video and going, I have muscles in my legs. Like, I could
yeah,
see definition
yeah.
there.
I was
It's
all proud
weird.
of myself because I got out of the shower and I was like, I look without my glasses on a foggy mirror. I look like Hugh Jackman, who's much older than me. Like, good job, buddy. Like, cool, So, and then, once that started to happen, I've pretty much only just had my cross rope since then. I burned through the 6 ounce rope, and I have a, I have a 4 ounce one that actually probably when I'm done talking to you, I need to get a
Is
new
that
one.
duct
So
tape on it?
it's electrical tape. Yes, sir.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
is it,
Taped them up. Cause
do
I think
you,
just from oh, go ahead.
or is it just wearing on the like concrete? Or I've seen you jump on a mat. Don't you have like a,
Oh, totally. No, I think that's just from, tapping on my foot. It wears away at the material. And
oh,
it's, I've had this one for probably a year now. It's
interesting.
I'm getting my use out of it for sure. So I
Yeah.
feel like, it's finally time to do it. But, I think I'm ready now. I want to maybe look at a beaded rope, and I had my phone out to like spend some money before. And I thought, well, maybe I should talk to Dizzy first and then wait and see. But yeah, I have a mat. Um, it soaks up a lot of water though. So I would love to be outside in the terrible weather that's about to
Yeah.
come to Seattle right now, but I'm going to need probably a different mat and
Mm.
maybe a beaded rope or just, I want to find another rope that'll be good for me to kind of start exploring, like
Yeah.
not 31-minute rounds, but we'll go out and just, fuck around for
Yeah.
an hour and see what we can do. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of explore that avenue. That's sort of next on the
Right.
horizon for me.
You
But
know,
yeah, cross rope
one
almost
thing I
exclusive.
found that I thought was a totally great idea is like I'm a Costco nut. That I love
Okay.
shopping at Costco, and they have these doormats that are, like outside doormats that are, I think they're like 14.95 or whatever,
Hmm.
and they work perfectly as a jump rope mat. Like I
Okay.
put one inside, and so and they're smaller. I think they're probably like, I don't know, 2x3 or something, but they're enough to be able to like jump and protect your rope a little bit.
Hmm.
The first rope that I was jumping with, when I started jumping at the end of last year and then injured myself so that I couldn't jump until like February, was like this cheap wire rope that I got off of Amazon. And I've seen them all over the place. I got like 2 for 1, whatever. Um, and it was on the order of a speed rope, but it had bigger black handles that had these little
Uh-huh.
grooves in them or whatever. And I really had fun with it. At one point, watching a video of myself skipping, I was like, why in the world are there sparks flying off my feet? And it was because I had worn through the rope and there was an actual wire in there that was
Yeah.
hitting the ground and
No way. And it was making
sparking.
spark.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
do you have that posted somewhere? That'd be a cool video.
No, no, I'd have to go back and find it. Yeah. But yeah, it, it was interesting. So, um, what, what you said that jump rope kind of helps you set your mind right in a way or like deal with
100%.
stress. Are there other, and it's also helped make you buff? Are there other benefits that Richard did that in quotes for those of you who are
Yeah. Oh yeah.
listening and not watching. So are there other benefits that you've gained from jumping rope outside of that and the
um,
community, I guess?
I mean, I think I could get real deep with it, to be honest with you. But I think let's start with just sort of my personality is that I can, I'm very excitable. I'm very emotional. I will, if we need to get the job done, I'll expend all my energy all in one shot and get it done. And I think a lot of times with exercise or with, lots of different things, I'll try, I'm going to do this as hard as I can. And then I'll either burn myself out or
Hmm.
whatever. But I think, the jump rope has helped me instead of like, oh, I'm going to jump rope for 2 hours on Tuesday. Right. And like, I could do that if I wanted
Hmm.
to. I mean, I'm at the point where I could jump rope for 2 hours,
Sure.
but then I'm going to be sore and then I'm going to be messed up the next day and
Hmm.
whatever. Like I can do that, but it's teaching me to, focus more on consistency than like hitting that high watermark of whatever
Sure.
it is. Right. Like, so
Sort of modulating things. So
yeah. And
yeah,
I mean, that's also something I like about the physical aspect of jump rope itself is, we all see those beginner videos of like, oh, don't jump really high and don't do this. But what we don't talk about is the reason we don't do that is because we're expending far more energy than we need
Sure.
to get the job done. And the job is to jump over the rope, right? So,
Right.
it's sort of, as you get better, what are you doing? You're reducing the amount of energy expended from your
Totally.
body in order to get this job done, right? You're increasing
Totally.
the efficiency of your movements, and you're doing
Yeah.
that both physically with your body and also using your mind to
Hmm.
control your body to, so then, with your boxer step or your basic bounce, like, like, you're just you only need to jump that much higher than the
Yeah. You
rope. And
jump.
if you're doing
Right.
that, like, and that's also what brings on that flow that you're talking about. And,
Yeah. It looks so cool,
I,
doesn't it?
yeah. And I find that something that's a skill that I need for the rest of my life too.
Hmm.
Like, if I'm in this huge kitchen and I need to talk to 7 people, if I go to the guy upstairs and talk to him, and then I come down to talk to the guy downstairs, but I forgot to go tell the other guy something, and now I'm back up here, and now I have to go and do this, and
Hmm.
I can still get that job done. But if I stop for a minute and think, like, okay, slow down,
Hmm.
I need to have this conversation, and then I need to go down here, and then I need to
Right.
do this, and so I'm looking at it as, and it's the same thing, like the skills I'm trying to get good at work, like communication and all those things. Like, I want to learn those skills for work, but I want to learn them because then I can bring them home. And now I can officially, like, communicate with my daughters. And now I can make sure that my wife understands, like, how I'm feeling, and I understand how she's feeling. And then we can, help
Connect better.
do whatever it is, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So, I mean, kind of in a weird way, just that efficiency of movement with the jump rope, like, you can apply that piece to lots of other things
That's
in your
really
life.
cool. Yeah.
You
I've
know what I
never
mean?
thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's
so
it's yeah, that efficiency of movement, and the, again, like, if we're gonna do 4 30-second rounds, that seems impossible, but we start developing the muscles and we start learning to move
hmm
correctly, and now that seems like nothing, and so we can,
yeah.
but still, just, we're refining always,
Yeah.
and not just with the jump rope, but we do that with the rest of our life.
I think
It's
that's a
pretty
great,
shocking. Like, yeah,
yeah. I think that's a
like they
great
always say, like, if
observation.
you turn your boat like 2 degrees in a direction over time, like, the different place you're gonna be.
Yeah.
And so,
Like it
again, like
adds
I was
up.
talking about, I always want to try to do the big crazy thing, but I'm realizing that instead of doing one big crazy thing, if I just make these little changes and hold on to them and be
Hmm.
consistent with them,
Hmm.
then over the course of 6 months or over the course of a year, like,
Yeah.
that big crazy change that I was trying to do in just one night or whatever, I can do
Yeah.
that, but I have to have the patience to
Yeah. I,
remain consistent and let it happen. You know what I mean?
yeah. That is such a great observation. And I am totally like that too. Like, and I was that way in school, like with homework. Like, if I couldn't sit down and get all of the homework done, I didn't want to get started. Like, I hated to do 15
Yeah.
minutes here and 15 minutes there. I thought I had to do
Yeah.
it all at once. And when approaching jump rope, I like, all right, I'm going to go out for 2 hours. And like when I'm
Yep.
starting out and, I had a ball, I injured myself a whole bunch and had to take it easy. Um, but I think that consistency of just showing up and put in 15 minutes, put in 10
Yep.
minutes,
Yep.
you get better and you get markedly better if you just keep doing it. It's better to do that, 10 minutes every day, 5 days a week than it is to do like one 50-minute session, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I'm applying that to the jump rope, but I'm also just trying to apply that to everything,
That's a really cool
and
insight.
it's,
I've never thought of it that
yeah.
way, but that is great. It reminds me of looking at my early videos when I was jumping with my arms way out to the side and I would go home and like, why does my left shoulder kill right now? I just don't
Yeah.
get it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then over time you realize, oh yeah, you keep your elbows in and you keep your wrists kind of down by your
Yeah.
waist and you rotate your hands, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can go a lot faster. You don't have to jump as high. So, I want to know, like, do you laugh at yourself while you're jumping? I laugh at myself constantly. What's something funny that has happened to you while you're jumping?
Well, I mean, that's sort of where the name Richard Head Jumps comes from, right? And, like, you, you spoke about jumping rope in front of like stoner teenagers and not really caring
Yeah.
and whatever. But, it's kind of like, I picked that name because, there is a little bit of like, I think from other people's perspective, there's a little bit of silliness to it. And I felt like if I'm a 44-year-old man who's posting videos of himself jump roping, like that guy kind of a dickhead, right? Like, so it's sort of even, and so it was just sort of like a funny thing. And it was also me admitting, like, I get that other people will see this and think like, okay, this guy's, a
And you
little
know
bit
what?
silly. So it was sort of,
I kid you not. When I saw your handle, I thought, boy, his parents did a number on him. Like,
well, no,
I thought it
to
was
be
your real
clear,
name, and I wasn't gonna
no,
ask.
not my real name.
Okay.
Richard Head Jumps is like Batman. He's like an idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just even the name was sort of an admission of like, I know this is a little bit goofy, but like I'm getting a lot of positive out of it, and I wanna do it. So
Yeah.
hey, yeah, dude, yeah.
Makes you
You want to
happy.
see a dickhead jump? All right, here he goes. So that's sort of even where that came from, is just, just the admission of it. Oh, and okay, so I have another story, and I wanted to make sure to tell this story. So we're getting ready to go to Vegas. This was, I don't know, last summer, and we had never been on a plane together as a family. Like the girls had never been on a plane, and so we're discussing that, what to be ready for and whatever. And my younger daughter had made a joke about like, well, what if terrorists take over the plane, like just joking, right?
Yeah.
And I turn around and I had been working out or whatever, and I made some like, oh yeah, well, I'm a tough guy and I'll take care of it. And my older daughter is playing video games and not really participating in the conversation. And she immediately looks up and goes, oh my God, terrorists have broken onto the plane. Does anyone here know how to jump rope? Right. And then just went back to what she was doing, right? Like, started making fun of me a little bit. I thought it was hilarious, but just
That
sort of
is,
that, like,
oh my gosh,
you've spoken about it too, of just like the willingness to kind of be a little goofy. You know what I mean?
yeah. Oh man.
Is sort of part of it too, and it's a part that I enjoy. But as far as silly things happening, that's one that I wanted to tell. Just my daughter giving me a hard time, which
Oh, that is so
in our
hilarious.
house we make sure to give each other a hard time because the rest of the world's going to give you a hard time too.
Oh
So you
my,
gotta
can
get used
anyone
to it.
jump rope?
Yeah. And then she just went right back to her video game or
Yeah,
whatever.
she's right back to her Switch or whatever it is.
Yeah, just got me, and I was really proud of her for that.
Boom.
One. And
yeah, she dropped the bomb and then walked away.
And then
So
the other story. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, so I have one more kind of silly one, and this was way back. So I work in a kitchen. There's a guy that I work with that I would have never been friends with ever if it wasn't for me working in the kitchen. He's from Egypt.
Okay.
And his name is Mohammed, and he's funny because he started before I did. And this man, he didn't speak a word of English when he started working in the kitchen. So and now he's fluent in English. Like you can have a conversation with him. And so he became fluent in English only using the language that is used in the back of the house, like in a kitchen. And that's how he learned to speak English. Right. So some of the things he says and some of the phrases that he knows are pretty spicy, I guess. And so anyway,
yeah, there's spicy.
Right. You
that's
can
funny.
imagine the language that goes on behind scenes
in the kitchen. Sure.
So if you were to learn English strictly
Oh my God,
from
that is so
like,
funny.
this is how he's learned English. And so him and I got to be really good friends, and he was a boxer in Egypt. And so he had some background of jumping rope, and he doesn't anymore. But this was before I had lost really any weight. I was starting to jump rope, and I showed him one of my jump rope videos, expecting him to go, oh, that's really cool, and I showed him, and he goes, hey man, I'm like, what? He's like, too heavy, man, too heavy. And I was looking at it like thinking he meant like I was landing wrong, or I was, like, what do you mean, dude? I'm not landing right. Am I landing too hard? And he goes, no, man. Your body too heavy.
Don't pull any punches.
Yeah, no, he definitely didn't pull punches. And that was also something that kind of sparked of like, okay, well, this is another something that instead of trying to starve myself or whatever, but I'm just going to start changing the way I eat.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
did like at my heaviest, I was, I think 220, 230, and I pull it around like 185 now. And
How tall are you?
him saying I'm probably 6'1",
Okay.
maybe.
That is
So, and
hilarious.
him saying that to me that day, sort of, not that I felt bad or he was making fun of me, but just I had
Oh,
thought like, oh, it must be my technique that's wrong. And he's like, no, dude, your body much too heavy for what you're trying to do. So
oh
that
my
sort of
God.
sparked me to travel down a road of like, oh yeah, maybe I'll, eat a little less or do whatever. And sort of,
Yeah.
that was something that I tried to remain consistent, and I've seen results, from that
Yeah.
piece as well. So it's funny, the little things that sort of just happen. And again, when you're in a community of different people, the different things that you didn't expect, that just maybe it's, like the video that you sent to me or whatever. You never know the next thing that's right around the corner that can, kind of spark you to go like, okay, well, I'll twist this dial a little bit on my
Yeah.
life, or I'll pull this lever down a little bit and try to adjust things. So I'm, again,
Yeah.
speaking about the community, it'll give you things that you may not even want, but it'll send you in a direction, and you never know what's
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. One of the things I love about being part of the community is the cheering people on, like
Yeah.
being supportive. Like I am just one of those people who feels like if you put good energy out there, it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And if you vice versa as well. But
Yeah.
I've
100%.
had so many people, support me from the time where I know I wasn't jumping super well. I had so much to learn, but nobody was like, "Hey, dude, you really suck, but keep going." People were like, "You're
Yeah.
doing great," like
You're pretty
they're
savvy at
just
this,
like,
bro.
right, no, like get hearts or
Yeah.
that kind of support meant a lot to me. And I was thinking about this earlier while I was driving. I say that when I started this and I started my Instagram account, it was really to track my own progress. At the beginning, that was very much true. But I think over time, my focus has changed a little more. I am tracking my own progress, and I do pay
Mhm.
attention to that stuff, and I learn. But I also am now participating more in the community,
Yeah.
and then I feel like over time you also sort of get your style, or I've sort of found a little more of my style, and so I am exercising that style, I guess, a little more. And so it's not just all about tracking my progress. Some of it is about being part of the community. Some of it is about figuring out who I am.
Well, so let me ask you this. If you're talking about tracking your progress, so in order to make progress towards a goal, we have to have goals,
Yeah.
right? So like, what are some of the goals that you're setting, or like, I feel like I'm loving my crossroads, but I wanna make kind of a change and not give up the crossroads. But like, can you speak on setting goals and tracking progress, and like, like how does that look for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Um, and thank you for the question, Richard.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so I would say that I realized early on that I wanted to get good. Like so many
Mhm.
people, I saw Lauren jumps and was like, "Oh my Lord, how can I do that? How can I move like that?" And
Yeah.
and so I figured I could accelerate my experience by having a coach. And so I found this coach that I work with. He's a wonderful guy, always Kadi, and you see his videos pop up all the time on Instagram. He's really funny guy, super supportive guy, but he has an app. His company is Timeless Jump, and he has an app that has like daily lessons, and so you sort of work through things. Sometimes it's not a jump day. Sometimes it's more of a off day, just maybe hand stuff or exercises, warm up stuff. The short answer to your question is I have other people help me set goals because
Okay.
I it is easy for me to just get into the flow and just kind of do my thing. I do watch people and I do try things, but having somebody say, "No, Eric, you need to practice these releases, 100 times on that side, and I want you to like you should be good at this already," is
Hmm.
motivating to me, and also to have somebody who can, in the moment, like on Zoom, look at me and say, "Oh, your hands are too far up, or you're too tense. Like relax,"
Hmm.
has meant a lot to me. So yeah, having somebody else um, constantly rooting for me and also correcting me and giving me things to do, like inspiring me. Like I watch that guy's videos and I'm like, holy Moses, that is so cool. Like if I could do that. And so yeah. So I think that's my answer basically is I do know like I want to get good at releases. There's this lady that I follow, Miriam Jumps Dance, and she is like a freaking rope ninja. If you watch her, she does these releases and jumps and like she's amazing to watch. And I see that and that's a goal of mine. Like I want to be able to move my rope like that. I have not focused on the rope wrangling as much as I have on the footwork, but I will get like Miriam someday because I'm going to put in the time, whether it's
Yeah,
10
dude,
minutes a day or
you
15
got the
minutes a
footwork
day.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. So, I've kept you for a while. I'd like to ask you that, like, what is your advice to people who are just starting out? You've been at this for a while. We've talked about consistency and stuff, but like somebody just starting out or thinking about, hey, I'm cycling, but should I do jump rope? What do you say?
I mean, I I can only speak to my own experience, but yeah, I have actually a kid in his 20s at work that he bought a rope last week, and I'm just telling
Nice.
everybody like, just do your 30-second rounds, but do it, with consistency. I think
Mhm.
it's super important to just not set the bar too high. We're all in charge of our own goals. And so
Mhm.
we can choose to make these crazy goals,
Right.
right? But then if you set the bar way high, I'm not saying you can't achieve that goal,
Sure.
but it's going to be a lot more difficult. So you can set a goal way high and try to do it. But if you miss, that's going to kind of click in your brain and, oh man, maybe this is not for me. But if you intentionally set
Yeah.
those goals to be real, just easy ones, and then,
Yeah.
just gradually,
Right.
right? Like that's what I would say is, pretend you're that frog that's getting boiled over a long amount of time, right? Like just
The
try to
heat's
really
turning
kick
up
yourself.
slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't, yeah. Just turn it up real slow. I think that's kind of my advice. And I think a lot of people with the personality to go out and jump rope on a block all night, like maybe they don't have the patience, but I think that's part of it too, is just exercising
Yeah.
that patience and just allowing for like, okay, I'm going to go out there for 5 minutes, but I'm
Yeah.
going to also go out there for 5 minutes tomorrow. I'm also going to go out there for
Yeah.
5 minutes on Thursday or whatever. And I think that just focusing on that consistency over time is way more important than any one thing you might be able to achieve on a certain day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's great advice. And I think, like you brought this up earlier, just the whole evening out of your life and sort of
Yep.
making things a little
Yep.
more mellow. I've noticed even,
Mm-hmm.
at work, things that would make me, my blood boil or make me fret or whatever. I have a little more like water off a duck's back syndrome, where it's
Yep.
like, that really
Yep.
sucks, but this is the only thing I can do about it or something like that. And
It's the exact same reason that Edward Norton in the movie Fight Club wasn't bothered by his boss anymore after Fight Club was over,
right.
right? Like
Because he was getting his
after
ass
Fight
kicked
Club,
every day.
yeah, yeah. After Fight Club, dude, there's no more problems. My boss at the
Right.
office is not going to bother me. Like it's
Yeah.
that. Like that's what it
That's
is,
Yeah, taking
right? And
punches to the
it's
face.
such a powerful, yeah, it's such a powerful tool that
Yeah.
if we can get up and go get out there
Yeah.
and put your shorts on and just, you don't even have to do your full workout. You just have to start. And
Yeah.
once you start, I used to tell
That,
people when I was riding a lot, they'd say, oh my God, how do you ride all
hmm
these miles? And, cause it was 10 miles to work, but I found these alternate routes where it'd be like 30 miles to work. And now I'm going across Mercer Island at 3 a.m. and coming back
Wow.
around down 520 and all this stuff. And oh my God, people would say, how do you do that? And I said, the hardest part is to get from my bed to the front yard
To
of my
bike.
house. Like
Yeah,
that's where the
totally.
battle takes place. And I think for people to remember that, that's what I'm learning is I don't
Yeah.
have to even do a full hour's workout. I just have to do the first like 4 minutes. And then after
Yeah.
that, I got music, I got sweat, I got blood pumping. After that, it's easy. So the
Right.
hardest part is just
Totally.
to commit to doing it, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah, that is so true. I can't tell you the number of times that I've like driven to the park and sat in the car and been like, I don't know,
Yep.
man, I'm a little bit sore and it's kind of crappy out or it's a little cold. And once I start jumping, it's just
Then it's easy.
that first step. Yeah, then I'm in the zone and I don't care if it's raining or whatever. I
Yep.
just
Yep.
have a ball. And I think that's great advice.
Well,
Richard,
and again, that's another lesson we can apply to everything, right? Like there's
yeah,
things in your life that you don't want to do, and if you just okay, go and
yeah,
do it, like build that muscle as well, that muscle in your brain that just goes, okay, we're just gonna take care of whatever this is,
yeah,
and not sitting around and waiting to do it.
yeah. Wonderful insight, Richard. So I just appreciate the hell out of you. And I thank you so much for
Same.
coming on the podcast and talking to everybody. I think this has been a lot of fun. Got a little philosophical there, which is great. Got some good music talk in. So thank you so much, Richard. Like I said, I really appreciate you and I love being connected with you. And for everybody else out there, I know I said it earlier, but it's at Richard Head Jumps. And now you know the story behind that.
Well, you do just thanks so much. Like I say, you were kind of the first person to reach out and make me go like, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of nutcases out there that I can, interact with now. So I just really appreciate you. And I think this whole podcast idea is just fantastic. So thank you
Oh, well,
very much,
thank you
sir.
so much. Yeah, I love being the nutcase out there that inspires people.
Yeah.